but you know, gotta represent. I don't know why I just like patted my own chest. This is going to be the update to the makeup chopping block episode I filmed. I think it was like a month ago. I feel like I've had a good amount of time with these products in here, and I'm happy to say that I was actually able to go through all of my eyeshadow palettes and weed out the ones that I didn't want. I was able to curate that part of my collection, and I'm really happy. I think all in all, I ended up having 26 eyeshadow palettes, which is still a lot. Like, I still feel like that's a lot. It's not as much compared to some people, I know, but I'm happy with that number. Every palette that is in my collection now, I can say that I really truly do enjoy. So yeah, I feel like that was a great thing to come from this. Really, I need to work on highlighters next. I think that was a pretty outrageous category when I did my makeup inventory. But anyway, let's just get into this. So I'm just gonna pull them out of the box as they come. So it's in like no particular order really. This wasn't featured in the last video, but it was a palette that I was able to decide that I didn't want. This was, my mom bought this and then she didn't want it. It's an e.l.f. just like little quad. It's a great like fall type palette for like right now. So that's why I went ahead and like pulled it out and tried to use it. I used it maybe like once, and the thing is that it wasn't like bad quality or anything, but I have these shades time and time again over and over in other palettes, so I don't need to hang on to this. The next palette, it also wasn't featured in that last video, but again, it's fall and I pulled this out and I was really able to like play around with it, and I've decided like it just doesn't have a place in my collection. It's the Makeup Revolution Chocolate Orange palette. It's gorgeous looking. It is such a fall palette, and when I first saw this, I thought, oh, Jasper. I mean, I didn't think, oh, Jasper, when I first saw this palette. My dog like walked in front of the camera and I thought he was gonna knock it over. Anyway, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, I don't have anything like this in my collection. Like, this is beautiful. This is gonna get all the use in the fall. And I don't have anything, like, I don't have a palette like this in my collection where it's like a very like orangey brown palette, you know. But when I pull out my other palettes and look at the shades, like I do have like very similar you know, shades to what's in here. And also, I am not in love with every shade in here. Some of the shades are like dry and patchy, like I don't know, let me see, what is the name of these two? Ribbon and Smash. Okay, so this shade Ribbon right here, and then this shade Smash right here, these are like the prettiest like pinky plummy purpley transition shades is how I use them. They are so hard to work with, so difficult. They don't blend out well. I didn't find them like enjoyable. They kind of like, if I added any other color to go with them, it just kind of got like really muddy looking. So all in all, it's just not a palette that I enjoy reaching for. So I'm going to say goodbye to it. The next items are everything that should have been from that previous video, because I tried to not like go through all of my collection. Like I wanted this to be like, we do this together kind of thing. The only reason I did it with the eyeshadow palettes was because it was just those two. Like I pulled them out to use them because it's that time of year, it's like fall, perfect time, and I just found that I didn't like them. So instead of like hanging on to them and like explaining that in another video, like I just decided to do it now. That is my long-winded way of saying here is our next eyeshadow palette. It's the LA Colors 16, it's just called like the 16 pan eyeshadow palette. And it's, I did kind of like this because it has like some of these grungy green shades in it, but really the only reason I was tempted in keeping it was for these shades right here. And again, it's the same Song and Dance. Like I have those in my collection in other shades. I would love to keep this around for these like great like green colors that are in here, But the truth is that I'm just not going to reach for this palette often enough to justify keeping it for like 1 or 2 shades. So I'm going to pass that along. The next palette that I was thinking about and that I am going to also declutter is my Makeup Revolution, the collab they did with Soph Does Nails here on YouTube. It's the Extra Spice palette. It is a really pretty palette, I'm not gonna lie. The only reason I bought it was for this yellow shade, which is a dud shade. It does not perform well. I don't like it. And then I have the original collab that she did with Makeup Revolution, and I like that palette so much better. And they don't look all that similar if you just like compare them, and there is like differences in it. I'm not saying they're like the exact same palette. However, there's enough similarities between them that I don't need to keep both. I would rather pass this along. It's still fairly new. It's like under a year old, I believe, at least for me in my collection. So I would rather pass these things along, let them go to somebody who's going to love them. The next one is the Crown Brushes. Yeah, the Crown Pro palette. I think this was called like the Enfuego palette. When I used to get BoxyCharm, I got this, and it's just a very warm tone palette. So I passed it along to my mom. She ended up not ever using it, so she passed it back to me. And I look at it, and again, I have these shades. I do. And I will admit, like, I didn't really play around with this palette. I swatched it a few times. But I have these shades in other palettes and formulas that I already know I love. So it was kind of like I just really didn't care to fool with it kind of thing. Then not the last, but we will switch over here and talk about these 2 blushes. So I had the Becca Luminous blush in the shade Snapdragon, and I am actually going to also declutter this one. It is just too like bubblegum pink for me and my taste. I feel like it makes me look like a clown when I wear it, so I don't enjoy it. I am going to pass this along to my friend. Hopefully she will enjoy it. And then the next blush is one that I'm actually going to keep. I got this in a BoxyCharm when I used to get them. It's the Laura Geller Baked Blush and Brighten blush in the shade Tropic Hues. It's a glowy blush as well, like that Becca one. But I like this one so much better because it's more of like a peachy golden glow, and I feel like it's easier to blend out. Like, it looks better. It just doesn't make me look clownish. And I really love the effect that this has. I still think I could pull this off in the fall, and maybe even the winter. I'm not typically one of these people that is like, oh, this is such a great fall shade and I could only wear it in the fall. Like, I'll pull stuff out in the summer if I really love it. So I really hope to, get more use out of this and continue to play with it, even though we are approaching like the cooler months and it's a more glowy blush. Anyway, so the last thing we have to talk about is the Z palette. That was something that I really wanted to narrow everything down in here and make sure that the stuff in here was shades that really benefited my collection. So I will try to say what I got rid of and what I didn't. If I missed something, then I'm really sorry. I know there was like a matte dark brown like ColourPop shade up here that I got rid of, obviously. Then I know I had like 2 shades from Mary Kay, like a blue and a brown. I got rid of those. The 2 from Alamar Cosmetics have stayed. And then these 3, there was another circle here. These are ABH shadows. I did end up getting rid of that dark brown one simply because it had glitter in it. And it was like a matte shade with glitter. I'm just not about that. I don't like it. Not into it. And then there were 4 down here. Now these are from the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. There was a dark brown here. I believe it was Central Perk was that shade. I just didn't really like it. It was very dark brown and it was like patchy on me when I like tried to blend it out. Now that could be my fault because when I depotted my Jaclyn Hill palette, like some of the shades, especially the matte ones, they cracked, so I repressed them. So maybe that was an issue brought upon by like me having to repress it. But I did end up keeping these 3 from that Jaclyn Hill palette. And then this new addition over here, if you can tell, maybe that looks familiar to you. It should. It is my ABH Subculture palette. I went through and depotted that because I really enjoy this palette. I like it. It's a very it just reminds me of fall. It's a very fall palette. However, I wasn't happy with like every shade in here. Destiny, Axis, and Untamed are the ones that are left in here. And Mercury also didn't make it into the palette. Neither did Cube or Rowdy, I believe. Those are the two shades with the X's on them. So those were just like the shades that I didn't like. I didn't gravitate towards. I didn't think that they played well with like my skin complexion. So I decided instead of keeping like this whole big chunky bulky palette, you know, for that, I would depot it and then put it into here. And I'm really happy that I did this. This makes me happy to like look at this and see it. So I'm excited to get more use out of my Subculture palette now that it's here, because those darker shades that are like left in it, I feel like they kind of like dragged the palette down for me in a sense of like my eyes gravitated towards them and they were so dark and so intimidating and just not at all what I liked, that I didn't want to reach for that palette. But now that I've like changed it up and switched it and like made it what I want, like it is a palette that I do actually really enjoy. So that is it for the update of the chopping block. I am now going to take time and really go through, I think I'm going to go through my blushes and highlighters. Again, go through my blushes because I only picked out 2 the last time that I was unsure of. But I want to go through them and pick out the ones that I'm like on the fence about. And so I'll come back in like another video and we'll do that. But I am happy to say my eyeshadow palette collection is done. I have went through it. I'm happy with everything that has remained in my collection. So, and I'm not, I guess I should have added this at the beginning of the video. I'm not like doing this for the sense of like decluttering, and I hate being wasteful, but I am on a no buy, and part of the reason I wanted to go on a no buy was so that I really could just spend time with my collection and get it down to products that I love. So I'm not about going to keep something that I don't like, I don't have a use for, and just let it rot in my drawers. Like I would rather pass that on to someone else. I know there's some people that have like a different mindset. They're like, well, you bought it, you spent the money on it, like you should use it. And yes, that's true, you should. So this curating my collection, this doing this no buy is really teaching me what products I actually like and not what products other people like that I want to like, if that makes sense. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it wasn't too long of a video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.